Welcome everybody out to podcast number 391, I believe. I'm going to talk to you about a couple of really cool things about business. So real quick. I'm driving from the airport. I just landed back in Phoenix, and so I'm going to spend a couple of minutes with you. I appreciate you being patient with the audio quality, so stay with us.
This is the Elevate Construction Podcast, delivering remarkable content for workers, leaders, and companies in construction wanting to take their next step. Get ready to step out of your comfort zone with Jason Schroeder as he encourages you to do better, live a remarkable life, and expect more. Let's go.
Welcome everybody. I hope you're doing well. I was flying back from Nashville, Tennessee to Phoenix, and I've been thinking about how, what podcast could I do? What could I record to really add some value? So I was going through all of my lists, and I'm like, man, there's so many different topics to talk about, but tonight I'm not feeling passionate about speaking about a specific topic. So I figured I'll go ahead and just find it kind of a heart connection. And so I was like, you know what? Let's talk about Elevate and business and things like that. So just to give you a little bit of context, I'm really working to get out of flying so stinking much. And I don't need anybody to feel sorry for me. I'm just telling you, I'm flying so much and I'm not home very much, and I'm going to fix that. And I found myself, my wife called me and Katie called me and freaked out. She's like, why did you put on our family plan what do they call it? They call it like the game center or the arcade on an Apple phone. And I was like, Katie, my mind is so fried. Like I've gone through and made so many outlines and read so many things and prepared so many speeches that I'm just fried. I downloaded Angry Birds on my phone. And I haven't done that a long time, but I'm just feeling myself exhausted. And so I was thinking about that and the fact that I wasn't feeling passionate about a specific topic. And I was like, you know what? Let's talk about why. Why am I flying home on a plane on a Tuesday night when I should be home with family? What are we working for? So I figured I would talk to you about where we have been and how I started this business from a standpoint of what do I want to say? How can I help other people? Hopefully the story is helpful. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's helpful from just a business perspective. But then where are we going? And why is all of this worth it? Even if it's really, really impossibly hard, even if it's just hard, but for a small moment. And so let me take you through that little journey there and to kind of take you through the mindset that I've had in starting this business and why it's important to me. So let me take you back to, and I'll put this in 2 podcasts, where have we been and then where are we going? You might hear some turn signals in the background. I'm driving safely, I'm paying attention, I'm just have the phone on record. But I helped put my father-in-law's company out of business. And I think I've told you this story before. But I was working for a large general contractor, and I was documenting the things that I perceived my wife's father's company was doing wrong, the things that I perceived there. It may or may not have been true. In a prison, which is where we were working, every security electronics device the critical ones have a home run back to the security electronics room in the core of a prison, from the wings, from the prison cells. And they were in charge of installing the conduit, the pathways for the security electronics. And whether the concrete was rushed or vibrators hit the conduit or the conduit glue wasn't properly fastened, or whatever went wrong, there were a lot of these conduits that went bad and got filled with concrete in the walls, which took massive chipping to fix it and to finish it. And I blamed everything on them. And so they got charged. We supplemented their work. It was really a nightmare. And I remember I started to ask this man's daughter out. We eventually I proposed to her and we ended up getting married. And I remember on the way back from California to Texas, as they're closing the doors of the business and going back, not with their tail between their legs, but in a really bad mood, my father-in-law stops by to say congratulations for getting married at our reception. And I remember him showing up at the door, not very happy and excited. I just married his daughter. Here's the most, and this is before I found religion in my life, but here's one of the most dishonest persons he's ever met in his entire life, marrying his daughter. And, just kind of being sad, out of business, feeling like a failure and heading back home. I remember the look on his face. And then I moved to Texas as well, Austin, and I get to go help build the Whole Foods World headquarters. After a couple of years of that, and then I think it was the University of Texas, or no, it wasn't University, Texas State University, Texas State, whatever. It was the Round Rock facility for their campus. I was on that building and then prayed about it and decided to go live where Katie grew up in Seymour, Texas. And so I was there with her family. I ended up joining her church with them and working with my father-in-law. And I remember I was his clerk. I was the administrative arm of what he did at church, and that was my calling. That was my responsibility. And over the years, he warmed up to me, taught me about religious things, mentored me kind of like a second father, and we really got close. And I thought to myself over those years, I really had the opportunity to reflect on how I treat people and I treat subcontractors, which I now call trade partners. And so when somebody wonders why I do podcasts, that's a defining moment in my life of why I take care of trade partners so much, is because I was a part of putting a contractor out of business. I was a part of being dishonest and unethical. I was a part of not taking care of other people. I was a part of watching that happen and seeing the looks on their faces. And so I vowed that I would never allow that to happen or do that to anybody ever again. So that to know me, you have to know that story and know that I take care of trade partners. The second one is when I was in Texas building the Whole Foods World headquarters, or at least being on the team, I almost got fired. And I told you this story before, bear with me. I was so bad at my job, made so many mistakes, offended so many people, was so stubborn that I was about to get fired. And I got scriptures in my life from a religious standpoint. And then the other thing is the Field Engineering Methods Manual. It was literally a matter of months from the time that I was about to get fired to then when Hensel Phelps started to pay me to travel throughout the country and pay for plane flights and hotels and cars and all the things to train other field ops roles. And it was quite remarkable to me. So the other thing that you have to understand about me is that I really believe in education. Those books saved me. Those books saved me from a lot of pain. Those books started me on a lifelong love of learning and attempting to be better. So to understand me, you have to understand that I believe in learning and training at the core of everything that I am and everything that I do. And so over the years, I've always liked distilling and putting material into a more consumable format, understanding concepts, sharing concepts. I remember when I was working with Hensel Phelps, I would spend weeks upon weeks creating video after video after video after video, watching myself and then correcting the speech and then saying ums and ahs and things like that, and then having to re-record the video and creating websites. And I actually designed software and things like that. And so over the years, being in the field, that's always been in my blood. Katie once bought me a book called Entree Leadership by Dave Ramsey. I read that book, and then another book, what was the other book? It was The Unbeatable Mind by Mark Devine. And I read that at a scout camp up in the woods when I had some free time and the kids were doing merit badges. And I was thinking about the statement or the question, when you are deceased, what would you want to look back upon in your life and say was your legacy? And at that time, I realized I wanted to start a business and really scale good things throughout the industry. I didn't know exactly what it was. A man named Kevin Rice, a really good friend of mine over the years, who's really good at business and helps actually elevate with business consulting and lean business. He coached me on how to create the clarity of what I wanted to do over a number of years. And it was about 10 years. And I know sometimes I get on these podcasts and I'm like all bold and brave and like, hey, go live your dream. But it took me about 10 years to decide to do this. And it got to the point where I really had to be willing to give everything up and let go of the fear. And so I'm going to read you some words to one of my favorite hymns, and I think it's really special. And this is the point that I got to. So here it is. First of all, it's called A Poor Wayfaring Man of Grief. So it's hymn 29 in our hymn books. And it says, a poor wayfaring man of grief hath often crossed me on my way, who sued so humbly for relief that I could never answer nay. I had not power to ask his name, whereto he went or whence he came, yet there was something in his eye that won my love, I knew not why. Then there's verse 2, there's verse 3, there's verse 4, 5, and then this is the one that really struck me. It says, in prison I saw him next condemned to meet a traitor's doom at morn. The tide of lying tongues I stemmed, and honored him mid shame and scorn. My friendship's utmost zeal to try, he asked if I for him would die. The flesh was weak, my blood ran chill, but my free spirit cried, I will. Then in a moment to my view the stranger started from disguise. The tokens in his hands I knew, the Savior stood before mine eyes. He spake, and my poor name he named. Of me thou hast not been ashamed. These deeds shall thy memorial be. Fear not, thou didst them unto me. So the real important thing that in this hymn for me was when it says, the flesh was weak, my blood ran chill, but my free spirit cried, I will. That's always been really impactful to me, because like literally that's how it felt to me to start a business. Was I've got 11 kids. I don't have the money. The security freaks me out. I'm super scared. My blood, my flesh was weak. My blood ran chill, but my free spirit cried, hey, if this is something that's inspired that I'm supposed to do, I will. And so I relate to that really well. That's the feeling that I had. Maybe you've had that same feeling when making a hard decision, or maybe, having to make a hard life decision, or get married, or quit a job, or whatever the case may be. I think we all have those moments, right? But for me, starting a business was like that. And when I got to that point where I was willing to give everything up and get past the fact that there wasn't any security, and get past the fact that I was super scared, and get past the fact that I had no idea how I was going to make it, and get past those things and say, you know what, my purpose is more important than the concern, and I'm just going to let it go. Then my flesh is weak and my blood is running chill, and I'm like freaked out. But my free spirit, the human, the person, the leader that I am, will cry out and say, I will do this for other people. Like that's where we all have to get with whatever our mission is in life. I hear, and now don't get me wrong, it took me 10 years, so I'm no example to follow, but I hear a lot of people all the time say, I can't do this, or I could never do that, or it's too hard, or this or that, or whatever. And the answer is we just have to get to that point. We have to get to that leverage. An interesting thing is once I had made that decision, the plan for how to execute the business really kind of came into view. I feel like it was inspiration, but like literally the information, the feelings that I had was that I would start a podcast, and that was something that I knew I should have been doing for a couple of years. Start a podcast, start marketing and building and get the business and start researching about it. And then the timeline kind of unfolded itself really nicely that, in the first part of December, I would give notice. 1st of January, I would leave. And I knew, and I believe again through divine sources, that the 3rd week of February, we would start making money. And that I wouldn't have to worry after that we would always be able to make money. And literally, that's what happened. I gave my notice the first part of December. January 1st, I left normal employment. And then literally I looked back at the books, and I should have saved whatever check or whatever put us over the top. But we started making money and getting above the line, what they call being in the black, the third week of February. And so when I cashed out my retirement, which some people wouldn't consider wise, but if you listen to Garrett Gunderson, he says, it might be worth it to, when you consider the opportunity cost. Basically took all of our savings to start the business. It got to a point where we didn't get super low. We still had $45,000 in the bank, but we stopped paying to start a business. We stopped that the third week of February, and it was really good that I had that focus of helping people and what the mission was, because sometimes you just have to hold on to things like that. When I do these podcasts, I think about you. I think about the workers. I think about your families. I think about how much good we can do together as we learn from each other. And it keeps all of us going. So fast forward a little bit, hard times work. By the way, I've never worked harder in my life than this year. So if somebody's thinking about starting a business, absolutely, absolutely go do it. Just be prepared that for the first year, you're going to work so hard you won't even know how you survive. Just as I come back off of a flight, and now I'm recording a podcast on the way. I paused to go to In-N-Out real quick to get something to eat. And then literally in 57 minutes, not to complain, but it's 8 o'clock. In 57 minutes, I get to go on to another international business call to make sure that we're advancing efforts on our online learning platforms. And it's it never ends. The requirements to run a business and to stay with it and to do the right thing and to do a podcast and to show up and to fly places, it just never ends. But I will say that one of the most hard things for me has been keeping positive cash flow. We do a lot of work. We have great customers. We have people that pay us. We have raving fans. We're doing a lot of great things. But man, when they told me when I was younger about cash flow, I should have paid a lot closer attention, because I bet, cash flow is just a big, big deal, because I may have outstanding invoices to the tune of and this sounds like a lot of money. It's not a lot of money. So, but to the tune of $60 or $70, $80,000, of accounts receivable. But payroll's got to go out every week, right? Expenses have to go out every week. All these things have to happen. It takes about $100,000 to have at least $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in the bank to stay out ahead. So it's not like anybody's getting rich, although paying for consultants and training sometimes seems a little bit expensive. So that's a little peek under the curtain. One of these days, if we create a software or I don't know, do something, or get an online learning series and sell it to 5 million people, maybe that's when we'll get rich. But up until now, it's pretty much just paying the bills. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But I can say that it's really, really rewarding. And the recent information that I've been given, at least from the universe, from God, intuition, whatever you want to call it, whatever you believe in, is to pivot a lot of what we do onto online learning platforms that are really, really, really engaging, so that anytime I fly around or I'm with somebody one-on-one or we're coaching or we're doing in-person events, it's special and it's focused, and there isn't a lot of burnout with that. And so my summary with this, I felt like it would be a lot more special saying what the history was of the business here, but basically it took me 10 years, had a lot of coaching up until that point, had to be willing to just give everything up and just let it all go, to be literally hey, if we get to the point where we can't eat, I'll move into with my parents, it's scary, scary stuff. And then to just say that the timeline has unfolded in a beautiful way. I remember when we hired Spencer in August, we didn't, or last part of July, and it's been fantastic. We didn't know how we were going to sustain that. I mean, that's expensive to have somebody that high caliber on payroll, but it all worked out. and he's been able to add so much value to people and to the company and what we're doing. And so I just have to say that, like, if there's a purpose, when there's a will, there's a way. And I am delighted to, in the next quick little podcast, talk about where are we headed at Elevate? Why are we doing this? What's the purpose, and why should we support each other? And why should we all band together to really make sure that we're changing this industry for the better? And so I'll see you on the next podcast. On we go.
Please join us next time in elevating the entire construction experience for workers, leaders, and companies coast to coast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to share with your construction colleagues and help us spread the word by rating, subscribing, and leaving a review on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate it. We'll catch you next time on the Elevate Construction Podcast.